Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So the 2026 midterms are right around the corner. It's true that 2025 is kind of like an election off-season year. Of course, you had Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Later this year, you're going to have the Virginia and New Jersey gubernatorial elections. All of that is true, but still, it's important to note that this is when a lot of the candidate drafting for 2026 takes place. People announce their campaigns. The primaries are literally less than a year in terms of when some of these primaries are going to begin. You'll have some in March of 2026, which is, 11 months away or so. And you already have a lot of updates just over this past week regarding candidate recruitment, things of that nature. And we're going to be covering that in this video. And there's been a lot of news for the Democrats this cycle that has not exactly been all that solid. You talk about their incumbent senators in Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, basically coming out and saying that they're not running for re-election. And then on top of that, you have the Michigan governor's race. It's like a three-way race. It's a big mess for the Democrats. They couldn't get their top recruit. Their top recruit's running as an independent. And on top of that, it's like Republicans, they're kind of in the mix of nabbing some top recruits in some of these races. And there's a lot we still don't know. But we did finally get a bad piece of news for the Republicans because Chris Sununu, who is the governor of New Hampshire, has a 60% plus approval rating in the state of New Hampshire. He's, not the governor anymore, but he was until a couple of months ago. He was teasing a run for Senate because the Senate seat became open, and now he's saying, no, I'm not going to run for Senate. And this is just a big mess because you have somebody who could have easily probably won the election, and then he's decided not to run. And I understand some people are going to say, well, nothing of value is lost. He's kind of a rhino, and it's true that he is kind of a rhino, but he is somebody that is from a state that hasn't gone Republican since the year 2000 at the presidential level, to the point where it's like you're going to take the best you can get. I'd rather pad the majority than just say, oh, no, a Democrat should have this seat, because Sununu is still somebody that Donald Trump wanted to run for Senate. He's somebody that has gotten along well with Trump when he's had to. He's somebody who probably will vote with Donald Trump around 80% of the time, if not more. But still, he's somebody who is deciding, no, I'm going to opt out because he thinks that he can run for president in 2028 and get the Republican nomination. These people are absolutely insane. Even when you need the rhinos, in a place like New Hampshire, they still find a way to stab you in the back, and that's exactly what Chris Sununu did. But there's plenty of other good news for the Republicans leading up to the 2026 midterms in terms of the recruits that they are nabbing. And this one is for the primary, which is a whole nother thing, and that is that Ken Paxton has decided to run for U.S. Senate. He's primarying John Cornyn. He very well possibly could end up winning that primary, which is absolutely huge because you're taking, in an R+14 state, one of the weakest rhinos and replacing him possibly with one of the best senators, if not the best senator that we would have in the United States Senate. So is it true Paxton might win by less because he's a little controversial? Yeah, but he's going to win. And this is a race where you can take that upgrade, even if it means winning by 3% less than what you would have won by if Cornyn was the nominee for Senate. So definitely Paxton running for Senate is a huge recruit. It's an early primary. It very well could get ugly, but still you're going to have 8 months between the primary and the general election. So do keep that in mind when it comes down to this Senate primary that will be taking place in the state of Texas. But that's a good news for the MAGA, the America First wing of the Republican Party, and a big L for the neocons, a big L for the rhino establishment, the old guard. Slowly but surely, they're either adapting or they are being repealed and replaced, which is a very good thing. Also, speaking about Michigan, we have another update. John James, he ran for Senate twice. He did better than most people anticipated twice, but didn't exactly win. He ran for House in 2022. He outran the top of the ticket by 15 points. He is somebody that is well-liked in Michigan, and now he's running for governor of the state of Michigan. And he's talking about important issues already out of the gate, talking about how our trade deals are exactly not really in the best interest of the people of Michigan. On top of that, he's somebody that, he's friendly with Trump. He'll get the Trump-based support, but he's somebody that has his own brand, his own thing going on. And in terms of a three-way race in Michigan, John James probably would be favored. I mean, out of the gate, he's probably going to start off with, you would assume, around 40%. The Democrats probably going to get around, 40%, but the Democrats probably going to lose more support to Mike Duggan than somebody like John James. And it's true that you're going to need to find a recruit for John James' congressional seat. But still, him going for governor very well could flip Michigan back Republican, which is something that not a lot of people were thinking about this election cycle, from its onset, because Mike Duggan, the Democrats really, would have tried to get him to be their nominee. He probably would have won in a landslide, 10 points or more, if he was the nominee. He's a mayor of Detroit. He, comes off as more sensible, even though, he does have Trump derangement syndrome, but people like him in the state on the ground. John James, however, he's also well-liked on the ground. He'll get the Republican base out. He possibly is going to start off as the favorite, assuming it stays a three-way race between the Republicans and the Democrats. So that much is true. And more bad news for the Democrats in North Carolina is that Wiley Nickel has decided to run for Senate. Now, Wiley Nickel himself is not a atrocious candidate. That is true. But still, this is North Carolina. It's a red-leaning state. If you wanted to take on Tom Tillis and beat him, you needed Roy Cooper most likely. Wiley Nickel is very close friends with Roy Cooper. If Nickel is running for Senate, Roy Cooper most likely is bowing out, and he's not running. So can Nickel technically beat Tom Tillis? Depending on what happens, it's possible, but still, this was a race that initially a lot of people saw as a toss-up between Tillis and Cooper. Now it's definitely gone from that to lean Republican. I compare it to New Hampshire because Chris Sununu, he's not running. Now, Republicans have a decent recruit in Scott Brown who possibly, could make that race competitive. It can still remain close. Brown is probably going to run for it, but still it doesn't exactly seem as if you could say that he's going to start off as the favorite. So a similar dynamic happening in a state, New Hampshire, it's kind of like a titanium lean Democrat state. North Carolina, it's a titanium lean Republican state. Wiley Nickel, not the worst recruit, but also not the strongest. And if he's going to be the favorite, probably Roy Cooper doesn't run. He hasn't said it for sure, but if Cooper did run, you'd have this ugly primary between him and Nickel, and it still wouldn't really bode too well regardless. So that's more bad news for the Democrats, and then we have even more because one of the easiest pickups in the House for the Democrats is the 7th District in Pennsylvania, where Susan Wild was consistently the representative. She ended up losing when Donald Trump won the state of Pennsylvania by a resounding margin. He carried several Republicans over in the House, which was basically the House majority. Now you're looking at this right here. Susan Wild has stated officially that she is not running in 2026. So when you look at this, it's okay, this is still a pickup opportunity for the Democrats, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to do so in terms of Susan Wild. And also, I'm hearing rumors that Stacey Garrity, who is the state treasurer of Pennsylvania, she won by 7, the same ballot that Trump won the state on. She is very solid in terms of her electability. And now she is basically, according to sources, she's considering running for governor. Now, it is true that you can't really beat an incumbent governor with approvals over 50 in almost every single instance. However, Garrity is a strong candidate who will make it close. And if you talk about these down ballot races, like the state house, the state senate, and most importantly, the congressional races, you're talking about 3 possible congressional races that could be at risk of flipping. Now you're talking about shoring those up in the Republican column. So that's great news If that does happen, she might obviously not beat Shapiro, but if you're talking about keeping it within 10, keeping it within 5, that's huge. And if she gives him a run for his money, then she can go for Senate in 2028 and possibly knock off John Fetterman, which could be easy depending on how the registration data keeps trending in the state of Pennsylvania. So most of this has been great news. There's still a lot we don't know for the midterms, but looking at this map right here, which I made, I think it's important. I'm going to show you guys here. So this is the tiers of priority, and this is based on several things. When you talk about priority, it would basically come down to, is there a competitive Senate race? Is there a competitive governorship? Is there going to be one or more competitive House races in the given state that Republicans either need to hold or they need to win? And where should most of the resources go this election cycle? Now, technically, you could talk about the fact that we need to primary out John Cornyn, primary out Bill Cassidy in the Senate. That's not really reflected here, but the priority states, not in a specific order, but the tiers of priority, you got California, Arizona, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, I think is important. Very underrated that you keep the margin at the top of the ticket close and you get out enough voters to hold those House seats. And you also have North Carolina, Georgia in that tier. California and New York, those are going to be very important states. And again, you will have these down ballot effects. So if you keep the governor's race close in New York, you keep it within like 15 in California, that's phenomenal news for the Republicans, even if they'd be falling short in those races, because the down ballot effects matter. Same thing goes for like Colorado to a lesser extent, where you have a competitive House race or two. Definitely got to make sure you flip back Kansas's governorship. Arizona, I'm not worried about any of the congressional seats in Arizona right now. I do think that the governorship is very flippable. Obviously, Georgia, that's an open governor's seat, and the Senate seat, will Brian Kemp go for it? That's kind of another thing that we're going to have answered here. But regardless, it's like this is really the priority map right here. There's certain states that are going to be of higher importance over others. And then, it definitely matters for the House, the Senate, the governorships. But again, the Senate is safe Republican for the most part. Democrats would have to like flip a state like Iowa and like Nebraska or Alaska in order to get the majority. They're not going to really be able to get to 50. I don't think they're winning Maine. At this point, North Carolina and Georgia, assuming Kemp runs, I think Georgia would lean a little bit more Republican. So it's like, if anything, they're expanding their majority. It's true that Sununu definitely could have costed them the seat in New Hampshire, but it's still going to be closer than people originally expected at the start of the year if Scott Brown goes for it. Then you have Michigan, you've got the governorship, you've got the Senate race there. That could be close. I still think that, it's an uphill climb in a midterm year where the propensity dynamics don't favor you, especially in the Midwest, but they kind of do in California, New York, etc., some of these other states that are crucial for the House majority. So once again, it's like, we got to get to work. It's never not election season, and we got to go from there, because it's very possible, and usually you wouldn't say this in a midterm year, but it's very possible that Trump's trifecta could be extended until the end of his presidency, which would be huge and massive, and there's various reasons for why that is. But it's like the House map, it's more favorable than you think. You have a high floor. You possibly could hold enough seats to hold the House, and the Senate map is foolproof. And even the Republicans in the Senate can't mess that one up at this stage in the game. And then the governorships, obviously, those don't affect federal policy, but still, there's plenty of pickup opportunities for the Republicans, not really very many for the Democrats outside of Virginia, which will be taking place later this year. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.